So what, to answer Phip's question, there is actually also a satellite going on tonight in the Montesino, starting at 7 p.m. It has a buy-in of 60 euros, and there are 12 tickets for the main event guaranteed, the main event with a buy-in of 550. And we already see the chip stacks of our 8 players on the table. As you can see, there should have been 9 players on the table, but unfortunately Thomas Brandner couldn't make it, so the MPN decided to use his chips and add them to all the other
Sorry,
players.
Martin, I have to interrupt you. I am just being told that they couldn't hear us on Twitch. So we'll probably have to get started again. Because we have been talking like for 10 minutes now. And unfortunately, you couldn't hear us. Yeah, so
I'm gonna make a short call and check what's going on.
Yeah, so we have actually talked about the structure and about this event. There are 8 players playing at this cash game event. They qualified via MPN network. So MPN is a poker network. They have a bunch of sites. You can play on either side. The player pool is mostly shared, and you could qualify on either of these sites, and the qualifiers are playing at this cash game right now. This has, by the way, nothing to do with the tournaments that are coming up. So talking about the MPN Poker Tour, which is starting tomorrow at Montesino, Vienna. And as you didn't hear our introductions, I am Jeffrey, and this is Martin.
Yeah,
you'll
so
say hi to.
You cannot see me, but you're gonna hear me for the next couple of hours. Welcome to this fantastic event that's going on in Montesino in Vienna. And actually we already can hop into the action, because the first hand is already dealt, and we're gonna make a short introduction to our players on the table. On seat number 1, we could just see Reneta Marinova from Bulgaria. She managed to qualify for this event. She's 26 years old, playing poker for 6 years now, and our only female poker player on the table.
If you guys are wondering, or will wonder when you see the different stacks, it's because these guys, they played online at some free rolls, and the first 3 of each free rolls, there were 3 of these, qualified for this event. And depending on which place you got, like the first place got different amount of chips than the second and the third. So the first one got 4,220 euros, and the second one got 2,720 euros, and the third one got 1,970 euros. So these are the stacks the people, these guys, will be playing with, and we are having some technical difficulties. We will have to interrupt for 1 minute because we're having some technical issues. Now we're back on screen. So we are playing 10-20 euros Small blind 10 euro, big blind 20 euros with no antes.
So we're gonna stop for the play introduction for a couple of minutes to see what's going on in the first big hand we're having. Actually, that's a huge flop.
That's a pretty interesting flop. So the action was Toffela coming in from cutoff, raising his jacks to 50 euros, and Lohunko calling from the hijack with his ace queen, which seems to be reasonable. He could have been 3-betting, but he decided to call, which is pretty fine. So it comes down to king jack 10 with 2 spades. Toffela flopping a set, which is obviously pretty good, and Lohunko flopping the nuts. So we'll see some action, that's for sure. So we see Toffela betting 90 euros and Lohunko thinking for a second and calling. So he's pretty much trapping. So Lohunko bets 200 into 310. And there's a 4-cut straight out there, but Toffela has just said, and Lohunko could have some worse hands. He could have some flush draws. He could have some 2 pairs that he is value betting. He could have obviously a straight or the nuts, not straight.
So I actually like the flat from Toffela on the flop, not going for a huge pot right at the beginning. And obviously the 9 of the turn is kind of slowing down the action even more. Although Lohunko is going to make a probably kind of a big bet on the river.
So for Toffela it will be tough either way. Like if he bets small, it's gonna be tough. If Lohunko bets big, it's gonna be tough because like he's not value betting anything worse than jacks probably. He could value bet 10s, but it would be really thin. So his jacks are pretty much a bluff catcher. So all he's beating is some flush draws if Lohunko decided to flat with some 5-4 suited, or I don't know, 6-5 suited in spades, or any ace spades. It is a pretty bad situations with jacks, and he makes a good fold. And we see Lohunko taking the pot of 370. 370 adding to his stack. Lohunko, who started with 4,220.
He's from Poland. Enjoys going to the gym. Looks kind of sporty. And plays poker for about 10 years.
So 370 should be a gym membership for a year. Yeah, Lohunko from Sweden. He qualified on Red Kings, which is from Poland. Sorry. We got some information, maybe wrong.
So it could be from Sweden, could be from Poland. We're gonna find out.
Yeah. So we're on to the next hand. Cutoff folds.
Unfortunately, we cannot see blonde hair, so we could have a high probability of having him from Sweden.
So this tall fella, he is definitely from Sweden, and he comes in for a raise from the hijack with ace-5 offsuit, which seems okay. And Ehlers in the small blind with a not very good hand, 6-3 suited, is thinking and folding, as well as the big blind with 8-3 offsuit. Big blind Renata Marinova.
As I mentioned before, she's the only female player on our table. Still managed to qualify for this cash game tournament, so obviously a great female poker player.
She qualified on BetSafe. So the sites we are mentioning, like where the our players qualified, these are sites under the poker network of MPN. And as we speak, we got dealt the next hand. This is the hand number 3 of this event. And now Toffela from Sweden comes in for a raise with the 8s.
The blinds are €5 and €10. 10 and 20, I'm sorry. 10 and 20, €10 small blind, 20 big blind. In total there are like €30,000 on the table. As Jeff mentioned before, players have different stack sizes due to the qualification process that took place online. Muren has pocket queens and is making the 3-bet to €220. So Toffela has a stack of 1.4k.
So right after this hand is completed, we will tell you something about the structure of this event. And we just missed the action when Ehlers folded his jacks, making a pretty good fold, a very disciplined fold, to be honest. So Toffela decided to make a call. The flop is ace king 7, which slows down the action, obviously, because queens are no overpair. So Muren might think that Toffela could have an ace or a king, so he decided to check the flop, and the turn is another ace, which makes it more unlikely that he has an ace. And so Muren decided to bet his queens for value and for protection, and got a fold and takes a pot. So I wanted to tell you about the structure. This game will go for 6 hours. That's the plan. So if we keep playing until for the full 6 hours, and the players can keep their stack, like whatever they have in front of them, that's their money then. And if the players remaining after 6 hours decide to keep on playing, they can do that for additional 2 hours. That's the maximum. And the 6 hours are played if there are more than 3 players left. So if we see players busting as they cannot rebuy, we will play until there is 3 players left, and then the game is over. So we see Ehlers folding some jacks, folding some ace-6 suited. So we can already say that he will be playing on the tighter side.
It's gonna be quite interesting to see how players like how they set their strategies, because for some players they are more, I mean all of them are cash game players, but probably some of them don't play as high, and of course if you choose.
So I'll interrupt you for a second,
Yeah.
Martin, because we see a big hand coming up, I guess. So the action was Lohunko raising ace queen to 60 and Marinova calling with deuces, and the flop is queen deuce 10 or 10 deuce queen, however you may say it. And Lohunko decides to bet his top pair top kicker, which is obviously a good bet because Marinova might call with a lot of hands, a lot of draws, king jack, jack 9 suited, offsuit, any queen that she decided to call with pre-flop, probably any 10, probably jacks, probably ace jack. So it's a clear value bet, and Marinova decides to play it slow. On the turn is it offsuit 3. Lohunko decides to bet again. I'd say it's a good bet because there are still the same draws like the open-enders with king jack, jack 9, some gut shots that like ace jack gut shot could eventually call because he could be bluffing. He could be bluffing with open-enders or some random hands, and she decides to play it slow again. That's a little interesting, not very interesting, but an interesting card, maybe.
I mean because it completes the straight draws.
One of them, and Lohunko decides to check, which is okay. You could go for a bet or a check if you think that your opponent has king jack and will bluff with king jack. You could check. I would say if you think your opponent is more the calling type and non-believing type, you might bet because they may look you up with a 10 with any queen. And if you think your opponent is tight and will not call with worse than ace queen, then you might check and hope that they have to bluff with king jack or ace jack.
So good start for Marinova, taking a pot of about 1,000 euros. So do you think it's not true that the set only is like comes out of 1 out of 8 times, because we already saw 2 sets?
Yeah, 2 pairs and 2 sets, so all the probabilities and statistics, they're thrown out of the window. So what we learned today is you should play a lot of pairs, make a lot of sets. But we also saw the first set losing to a straight.
So it's not always good to flop a set.
No, ace queen seems to be the best hand.
Yeah, so far.
Sometimes. So off to hand number 5, when Jankowski
So he's under the gun +1. Ace 7 suited.
And he decided to fold that.
Goes into the muck.
So the small blind. Murin calls with king 10, and Lohunko checks his ace deuce in the big blind. Flop is 8 for deuce with 2 spades. It's a okay flop for Lohunko with a backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, and bottom pair with ace kicker. And he decides to bet out. No, Mirren bet with king 10 tried to take the flop, take the pot, but Lohunko called with ace deuce.
So Mirren, our player from Norway, only player from Norway on this table.
Turn went check check after the 7 of spades, and now Lohunko has a very good hand, and Mirren doesn't have anything except for king high. So he bets out 120, but it's a pretty easy fold actually with king 10, as Lohunko shouldn't have anything worse than king 10, king high when the 7 of spades comes in, because even if he called the flop with a gut shot with 5-6, he has something, or 6-7, he has hit a 7. If he had flush draw, he has a flush. If he had any piece of the flop, he still has a pair or trips. So king high goes into the muck, a good fold. And we're going to hand number 6. And Jankowski has king jack suited under the gun and calls 20, and our so we didn't, no, there was a wrong display. So Jankowski made a raise to 60. And the action is over to Muren with the 9s. He decided to call, which is pretty standard. We see ace jack calling as well. And oh look, and Lohunko decided to call with a 5-3 offsuit, which is a pretty interesting call. And he gets a great flop for his hand. His bottom 2 pair is vulnerable, obviously. Any club would be a disaster for his hand. A king would be bad. So he should think about protecting his hand a little bit, but let's see what our friends do. So we see a bet from the big blind from Toffela with ace jack offsuit with a jack of clubs, so he has jack high flush draw and decides to bluff at it. I'd say it's a pretty risky bluff because you have 3 other players, and a king will call, ace queen with the queen of clubs will call, any club ace will call, obviously sets will call, so he still decides to bet and bluff at it. Jankowski has top pair with his jack kicker, so he will not go away, I assume. And he calls, and as does Longo with his bottom 2 pair. The turn is pretty interesting because Lahunko has to decide if he wants to keep on bluffing or not. He did not. Sorry, Toffela. Lahunko checked his 2 pair. Toffela seems like is giving up with his flush draw, and Jankowski decided to check back his top pair. You could bet or check. I think betting is okay because flush draws may call, some weaker kings may call. So 8 of hearts, all flush draws missed, and so Jankowski will have a tough decision on the river. Lahunko bets his 2 pair now for 400. It's a smallish bet, and now top pair has a tough decision. He may be thinking that Lahunko could have a worse king because he could bet it for value as no one bet the turn. He could have any missed flush draws. He could have some random ace deuce going for a gut shot on the flop, which also missed, or ace 4. So for this amount, for this smallish bet, he has to call 400 in a pot of 1465. Getting this odds, he will probably end up calling, I guess. Not sure though. I see myself calling here if I played the hand like this. I don't know what Martin would do.
I definitely would value bet if I would be Lahunko, because I know that you're going to be calling because you're a station.
Jankowski seems like folded king jack.
Lahunko was pretty active so far, but he also had pretty good hands, so not really a reason to not to believe him. On the other hand, could have also been a missed flush draw, and probably if you check back the turn, your overall strategy would be to call the river. So if you guys are interested in playing the main event, I'm gonna give you a couple of information. The MPN Poker Tour starts tomorrow at 4 p.m. with day 1A in the Montesino in Vienna, having a buy-in of 550 euros and a guaranteed prize pool of 200,000. Starting stack is going to be 25,000 chips. There is also a second starting day on Friday, 27th of January, starting at 2 p.m. And if you want to play the main event with less than 550 euros, you can also play a satellite which is going to be tonight at 7 p.m. with a buy-in of 60 euros and 12 tickets guaranteed. We'll find all the information about the schedule on the website of the Montesino, www.montesino.at. And the final day is going to be on Sunday. We'll also have a live stream with a 30 minutes delay. And if you like what we're doing, we're gonna be back on Sunday. If you don't like what we are doing and saying, still we're going to be here commentating
you have
the
no
live
choice.
stream. So the only choice you have is just to turn off your computer.
You have to live with us.
Yeah, at least for today and on Sunday.
So, hand number 7, we see Murin raising from the hijack with 2 5s. And Toffela in small blind with King 9 thinking and folding. And Jankowski with 10-4 suited. And in the big blind, it's 30 to call. But he decides to fold.
So what I mentioned before is like the players are not only from different countries but also have a different background of playing poker. So some of them play already for 10 or more years poker. We also have one player, it's Cem Ayhan. You see him being second right now. He only plays poker for 6 months. So I'm pretty sure that he's kind of nervous, but so far he's doing very good. And most probably not all of them play cash games with 10 euros, 20 euros of blinds. So there might be some hands where players go more for the pot control line in order to first figure out the playing style of their opponents, and probably later on the game is going to be more loose.
So, and if you guys watching have any questions, anything you want to tell us, anything you want to know, just type in the chat box, either on twitch.tv/thrillofpoker or twitch.tv/concordpokertv. Type in the chat box, let us know what you think, let us know what you want to know, and we'll try to provide you with all the information. So it's hand number 9.
By the way, there is actually another promotion going on right now on this table, because the guys from MPN decided to add some extra chips and some extra money to the pot. It's called Cash Drop. It's between 50 and 250 euros, and we actually already had one hand with this extra amount of money. It was hand number 6, and due to the fact that we have some inside information, we know that there is going to be another one coming up very soon with extra cash in the pot, so players have another incentive to play the hand because there is extra money in the pot.
So hand number 9, we see Toffela raising with ace-10 offsuit, getting some folds, and it's now up to Ehlers from Germany with ace-3 offsuit. My impression is that he will play pretty tight, so I guess he will make a disciplined fold, which it does. And generally, as far as I see now, I mean, obviously we cannot say a lot about the players, as there have been 9 hands until now, but Toffela seems to be on the more loose aggressive side. He will be playing more hands than the others, I think, and Ehlers seems to be on the tighter side, and for the others we will see how they take their chances.
If you're wondering why some of the players have patches on their shirts, we mentioned before that they qualified through an online poker tournament on the Microgaming Poker Network. In total, there are like 27 poker rooms joining this network, and players are here representing their poker room where they qualified. To mention some of them, it's Puff Poker, Nordic Bet, BetSafe, Red Kings, Betson, and so on and so on.
So we see Muren under the gun with King 10 suited, calling 20 euros, and Lohunko making a raise to 60 with Ace Jack suited, which is reasonable, and Toffela in the hijack only calling with the jacks. He could 3-bet, but he decides to call. We will see a flop, and the flop is 10 for deuce with 2 clubs, and we see Toffela betting 200, and Muren making a call with his top pair, obviously. So Muren might be in some problems with his top pair, and a pretty good kicker, because he may expect Toffela to raise pre-flop, re-raise pre-flop with something better than 10 as a top pair, so he's losing to jacks, queens, kings, aces, and ace 10 and sets, but I can imagine that he thinks that jacks would 3-bet, so he could think that he has the best hand. So he calls, turn goes check check. I think Toffela should definitely be betting with jacks and not checking, because there are a lot of hands that could call. There's a flush draw out there. There's like any top pair will probably call. Flush draws may call. Even 9s and 8s, 7s, some mid pairs would call because there's a flush draw and may think that Toffela is bluffing. So I think he missed, definitely missed some value on the turn, but he decides to go for 320 on the river on the 9 of clubs, and Muren might think that he has the best hand because he could expect I'm sorry, I think on our computer the action was showed differently, so actually Muren bet 320 and
Toffela decided to call. Yeah.
and wins 670, adding to his stack.
So to give you some general information about this cash game. It's happening in the Montesino, which is part of the Concord group with 10 poker rooms all over Austria, and they have a couple of 100,000 visitors or players playing the tournaments and cash games all over Austria, promoting poker as a mind sport, hosting a couple of really big tournaments and tournament series over the year, and 24-hour cash games. So whenever you want to play poker and you're in Austria, you're going to find the right place to play. If you want to know what kind of cash games are going on, there is also a live ticker on the website of the Concord Card Casino, so you can check out where the best game that suits your budget is going on.
So, hand number 11. Seems like Toffela decided to limp, to call the 20 with King 9 suited. And it's folded around to the big blind with 3-2 offsuit, and he decided to check. Flop is pretty interesting because the big blind might think that his chew is good, and Toffela will probably not go away with his mid pair.
But he folds.
And Toffela takes it down.
So if you're wondering who is commentating this live stream and you just turned on the live stream, my name is Martin Sturz, and next to me is
Jeffrey Islam.
We are here to analyze all the hands and give you some general information about this cash game and the MPN poker tour that's starting tomorrow with the main event.
There's a question in the chat, which blinds are played. It's 10 euros, 20 euros, small blind is 10 euros, and big blind is 20 euros. And we will be playing for 6 hours or until 3 players are left. So 6 hours if there are more than 3 players left, and at the end, either after 6 hours or when 3 players are left, the people sitting on the table will keep their stack, and that's the real money they get. So if someone ends up with, for example, 10,000 euros in front of them, they will keep 10,000 euros. If someone busts, if someone loses their chips, they will have no opportunity to rebuy. If the remaining players after 6 hours decide to keep on playing, they are given 2 extra hours. That's the maximum.
We're at hand number 12, and as I mentioned before, there are some hands during this cash game where there is some extra money added to the pot, and this is one of them. In this case, 250 euros are added from the Micro Gaming Poker Network. It's called Cash Drop, and that's probably also the reason why Lohonko Undergun made a straddle to 40 in order to steal a pot, and now decided to raise it up to 260 in total.
He's doing a good job. He sees that The others are not really interested, and he tries to take down the pot with uh, pretty much a garbage hand, because there are 250 added.
So you see
there's
the extra chips, and players can actually keep those extra chips. They are not in play, they are kind of a, I would say, like a bounty. If you win them, you can keep them, and even if you bust and lose all your chips, you can at least keep those extra cash drop money.
So the 250 euros he won goes into his pocket, and they are not on the table.
I think it's actually a pretty cool idea to have those cash drops being part of the game, because it just makes it more interesting to play. It's most probably also gonna change the dynamics.
Definitely, we will see some aggressive plays, probably just as we saw with the Jack 5. Maybe later on the others will catch on and see that someone is trying to steal all the money in the middle, and they might start fighting back. And we go to hand number 13.
We have a question in our chat box. In general, feel free to send us all the questions you have, and the one in the chat box is, why do players not play with 5 cards, and then you can draw as many as you want. That's actually another form of poker. It's called 5-card draw. Used to be played in the Western movies and a long time ago, but here players play Texas Hold'em no limit. It means that each player receives 2 pocket cards, and there are going to be 5 community cards dealt on the middle of the table, and players are making or forming their hand with the best 5-card combination out of the 7 cards in.
We'll have to jump into the next hand, Martin. You can continue after this. We saw Ihan raising with King 3 suited, and Lohunko making, I would say, not standard play with Ace King. He decided to call. He could have 3-bet, which would be probably preferable, I think, because Ihan would call with worse hands, with King Queen, probably King Jack, or some dominating hands, dominated hands. But we see the flop 6-5 deuce, and flop Lohunko decided to check out of the big blind, and Ihan decided to check back.
No, Ihan made a c-bet, and actually I really like the c-bet because he not only has a gutshot straight draw, but also backdoor flush draw, and he definitely should also fire the turn.
Now we see Ihan making a bet on the turn with his gutshot and his flush draw, and Lohunko having a tough decision. He has only Ace King high, but he knows that Ihan could bluff at it with a lot of hands, with some open enders, with any 8, with some flush draws, with some random overcards. He could just decide to bluff at it, thinking that Lohunko is not very strong, but he decides to give Ihan credit for having something.
Ihan is smiling.
Ihan is smiling because
his bluff worked out. So.
Wouldn't you smile?
So let's see if he's also smiling when he has actually a hand and wins the pot, or if he's kind of pissed that he didn't get paid off.
We'll try to pick up some tells. So as far as now, we know that Ihan smiles when he gets a bluff through.
So we see the chip counts. Sebastian Lachunko from Poland leading the field.
So I thought for a second with 6-4 suited. King 3 worked out, so why not 6-4? But he decided to let it go. We see Ehlers thinking and folding. We see only the queen. I guess the other card was not queen. Or maybe it was, and he is very tight. He played very tight. I have been mentioning that a lot of times, right? But being tight can be a solid strategy and a good strategy at this game, because after the hours played at the end, if you're still on the table, you just keep the money, and the money and the chips they have in front of them, they got after winning at a free roll, or actually 3 free rolls. They were played on different sites, on different sites of the microgaming poker network, and the top 3 of each free roll won an entry to this event. They got different size of stacks. So the first got 4,220, the second got 2,720, and the third got 1,970 euros. That's the stack they started with at this event.
And actually, they did not only get the cash to play, but also the entire trip to Vienna was paid by the Microgaming Poker Network, which is pretty nice. Vienna, one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
It is the most beautiful city. It is.
It definitely is. So Setkovitz raising with Ace King suited to 60 euros and takes down the pot. Players actually got a champagne welcome.
Yeah, we didn't.
Here in the Montesino. We didn't, but probably we're gonna get some champagne. If we do
sure?
a good job.
You're sure?
So, no, well, depends on us.
I think we should get some champagne. So we see in the chat that someone is kind of complaining that someone squeezed with Jack 4 and only flatted Ace King and no 3-bet, and that he is a crazy guy. The Jack 4 was actually a squeeze because there were 250 added money. That's the cash drop.
And actually, in hand number 16, we're seeing right now there is also some cash added, and this time it's 150 euros. So it's always between 50 and 250 euros added to the pot, and that's called cash drop. Players can keep the money if they win the pot, and they are like bounty chips. So no matter what's going to happen later on, you will not going to lose this extra cash drops.
So we see a raise to 60 with 6 deuce. That's probably because of the cash drop.
But to answer like the question or the comment from Mind Earth, yes, he was kind of mixing up his strategy, but that's due to the circumstances with the extra money in the pot. He decided to squeeze it with Jack 4 and just to flat with Ace King. He was also out of position in the Ace King hand, so maybe that was also a reason, and he was playing against Ihan, who was playing quite tight. So maybe he just decided to play a smaller pot.
So in this cash drop hand, I will call it this from now on, we saw 6 deuce raising and Ihan defending his big blind. with ace-7, which is reasonable. And the flop was jack-9 deuce, and we saw a check and a check back. Turn a king. Ihan doesn't improve and decides to give up. He could have, and I think he should have probably bet on the turn, try to bluff and take the pot down, because when the open raiser doesn't, Lehunko doesn't decide to bet on the flop on jack-9 deuce, he's most probably not having a very good hand, and he's probably not having a draw. So the king is actually a good card for Ihan, because he could have actually anything. He could have two pairs, he could have sets, he could have a straight, so he can represent a lot of hands, and Lehunko will have a tough time calling with whatever he checked back, which is most probably in most cases are ace highs and bottom pairs, two mid pairs, something like that, or just nothing giving up. So I think Ihan missed a chance to take down the pot.
So what's your opinion on the 6 deuce open raise?
The table is playing pretty. They're playing very tight, all of them. So I think it's okay to take a shot. Like it's 150 added. If you get through, as you saw that he almost got it through completely. He got through all of them until the big blind, who just defended his a7 and pretty much gave up. So if your opponents play a tight strategy, you should be playing more aggressive, obviously. You can use that to your advantage. If you know that the others are playing very aggressive and a very crazy style, then you might sit back and think about playing tighter. But in this game, at least until now, it seems that they are not willing to put a lot of chips in. So I think he did a good job stealing the extra money, the cash drop of 150. And so I think it's obviously not a very good hand if you look at it. If there was no added money, I would say it's not a very good raise, obviously, but with the added money and especially the players behaving as they do, I think it's okay. And we go on to hand number 18, where it's folded around to the button to Ihan from Turkey.
And we again have a cash drop alert. There is €100 added to the pot.
So it's another cash drop hand. And we see Ihan raising and Ehler's thinking, but decides to fold with his king 7. And Marinova with jack 7 also decides to fold. So Ihan takes down the pot and the added money. Maybe you can tell us something about Ihan, Martin.
Yeah, so Ihan is from Turkey. He is 20 years old, so one of our youngest participants. I already mentioned that he is kind of new to the game, plays poker for 6 months. So it will be quite interesting to see how he manages to compete with the other guys. He loves basketball, so he's also a lot into sports.
6 months, that's not a very long time, so he's very much new to the game.
But so far he's doing a good job, right?
Yeah, I couldn't say. Just by watching, I wouldn't know that he's only playing for 6 months now. But we will see. So we go on to hand number 19.
So if you want to know like how often is going to be a cash drop added to the pot, we're going to see about 30 cash drops in the first 100 hands. So almost every third pot has some extra value in it.
So this is interesting. Ihan, we saw, I think it was the same position. He was in cutoff with 6-4 spades last orbit, but he decided to fold. Now he thinks that 6-4 in diamonds is better than 6-4 in spades, and raises it up to 60. And Murin decides to defend his big blind with Queen Jack offsuit. And the flop is pretty good for Ihan, and not so good for Murin. With 7-6 deuce rainbow meaning that there is no flush draw, 3 different colors, and Murin checks his overcards, and Ihan is probably gonna make a bet, which he does. So by this bet of 100 euros, he's just pretty much protecting his hand and not giving overcards or any draws, open-enders, gut shots, or anything like that a chance to hit. So it's just you can't say a protection bet or a value bet if Murin decides to call with some worse hands, with ace high or king high, if he thinks that Ihan has nothing and just is bluffing at the pot. But Murin didn't think like that and decided to let it go. And we continue with hand number 20. Martin will always update you with the cash drop hand, so every time extra chips, extra money is added to the pot, Martin will let you know, because I think it's not displayed on your screen.
And actually also players don't know, so at some point the dealer is just adding some chips. You can see the rack, or you just could see the rack on the right hand side of the dealer, and he's gonna get the introduction just to add some more money. And you can see that those chips have like different a different layout.
So we see a 3-way flop. King 3 deuce, no flush draw. Only Lohunko with a with anything actually. That's 2 pair, but he will most probably not get any action.
But Lohunko did limp in, right? Because pot was only 70, so he limped in out of the gun with 3 deuce suited. Right?
He limped in, yeah, but there might be some false information.
Also because of the added chips, probably. Yeah. There's 100 in the pot, so he
tried to get into the pot.
Yeah.
So we see Jack, and Jankowski trying to steal the pot with Queen Jack high, and he will not be successful as his opponent has 2 pair. And Lohunko decides to raise it up to 260. So we'll probably see a fold, yeah, and he gives up his queen jack, and Lahunko shows that he's not messing around, he's not bluffing.
But at the same time, he's showing that he's messing around because he plays previous suited from under the gun, right?
No, but I think it, yeah, but it could be his strategy, like showing them that he's not check raising bluffs, that he has a strong hand when he is putting in some money. So if that's his strategy, that he will bluff later on, it's a good strategy. So there are there is some cash drop action now, I think.
Yeah, should be hand number 21. 150 euros added. Have you ever played with some added money in a cash game? Well, I think at some point when we had a home game, I added some chips or something like that. Like, or
yeah, I think we did some of these things in our home games, but
probably not 250 euros, right? Well, it was more like
2 years. So we see hand number 21. There should be 150 added. Now you can see that. So Marinova raises with queen 8 to 60 in the cutoff, trying to steal the 150 and hopes that all of them fold. But Lahunko is not going anywhere with his ace 8. And we see
he probably knows that he should be in a good spot with ace 8 versus a cutoff raise in a cash drop pot.
He decides to make an interesting bet of 160. I'm not sure why he would bet with ace 8. He's not folding out better hands, probably because better aces will probably call ones and just see what happens on the turn.
But Marinova is not going anywhere.
And she's not going anywhere. She doesn't believe him.
And I actually like that she's just flatting.
No, she's actually raising.
She was raising?
She raised it to 320. Okay. And Lahunko now didn't believe her. So this is going to be interesting as Marinova hits the queen. I can see her checking. I can see her betting. I think you should definitely be betting, because Lahunko, if he has something, he will have S6 or maybe 7s or 8s. When he had top pair or overpair, just betting out and calling. So if he didn't believe Marinova on the flop, he may not believe her on the turn. So she could get some value on the turn with her top pair. It's interesting that Marinova actually was very tight until now, and then just decided to put in some money with queen 8 offsuit and not believing Lahunko anything.
And she takes down the pot. Well played.
And she takes it down. I think it was interesting by both of them, because Lahunko, if he thinks that that she doesn't have a very good hand, he could actually check and call the flop. But instead he decided to bluff at it. But I think if she has better hands than ace 8, she will most probably be calling. And she might fold worse hands, but we saw that she bluffed with Queen 8, so gets you in some trouble spots when you bet out here.
But I think the only hand we actually saw from her in the showdown was the set of deuces.
Yeah.
So, and she
true.
didn't play too aggressively with that hand. She just called on the flop and on the turn and made a bet on the river. So probably her image on the table is quite solid.
Yeah, should be definitely. So actually, I think Lahunko made a good fold on the turn. He may have considered on the flop, folding on the flop, but he was right as he called the flop because she had pretty much nothing. And he was right on the turn as well, so well played, I'd say.
We see a blind battle. Lahunko versus Toffela.
Yeah, Lahunko completed his small blind, putting in 10 more euros, and Toffela decided to check back his 6-3 suited. Pretty good flop for Lahunko. He checks and Toffela doesn't bluff at it. And Lahunko checks again, hoping that Toffela will try to bluff at it, which he does. I mean, when the flop goes check check, Lahunko is very confident that he has the best hand, and he can easily check call, and Toffela will probably not have a piece of it, so Toffela may see himself forced to bluff at it once or twice. Seems like he
Toffela is kind of folding his hand, but not folding his hand. He wanted to see Lahunko's hand first.
Yeah, so Toffela gave up on the river. I think it's a good give up. When Lahunko checked twice and called the turn, he most probably has something, and he will not be folding very often. And again, if you guys have any questions, anything you want to tell us, anything you want to know, just type in the chat box. We will try to answer all your questions.
Well, we will definitely answer all the questions. The question is if it's like makes sense what we say, right?
Okay, we'll try to provide you with answers that make sense. So we see some folds, and we see Lahunko going for the next pot, for the next hand, and with 8-7 offsuit this time. He is here to play, I'd say.
Definitely.
He's not here to fold around and sit around.
Folding ace 3. Probably doesn't want to play against that kind of player out of position, although we have to say that with ace 3 versus a button open raise, he's probably having the best hand, especially when the open raise comes from.
But it will be
Lahunko.
tough to play out of position with ace 3. It flops not that well, so I think he made a good fold. And Jankowski called in the big blind with 5-5, which is probably standard. And we see a flop, 8-6-3, rainbow, and the check from Jankowski.
And the c-bet from Lahunko, 35 euros, which is quite small,
And
about a third of the pot.
Some of you guys very new to poker or not so experienced, the c-bet is the continuation bet. and we see a call from Jankowski.
I think it's pretty reasonable given the way of play from Lochanko so far.
Yeah, I think so too. So Lochanko will bet with probably a lot of hands here, just trying to take down the pot. And to turn, king went check check, so Lochanko could have a better hand than fives, could also be giving up. And the 6 on the river is actually a good hand for Jankowski, as if he had the best hand, he will probably have the best hand now, or definitely have the best hand. And Lochanko decides not to go for value with his mid pair, and it goes check check, and Lochanko takes down another pot.
So Weinzeman says hi on the chat.
So hi, Weinzeman.
How are you doing?
We will be streaming this event until the end. It will be played for 6 hours or until 3 players are left. And after the 6 hours or 3 players left, the remaining players will keep the money they have in front of them. After the 6 hours, the remaining players can decide to play on for 2 more hours maximum, but that's up to them. So we see Marinova raising with a queen 10.
So she's also kind of losing up her game a little bit.
I think a lot of them will be sitting around for first couple of hands and maybe an hour just to find out how the others play, who is tied, who is loose, and then lose up.
I think it's also the first time those players meet on the table. I know that Lochanko plays on the tour, the MPN Poker Tour, already participated in a couple of events.
Which will, by the way, start tomorrow in Montesino, Vienna, with the main event and the final table on Sunday.
If you're interested to play, it starts tomorrow at 4 p.m. and if you want to qualify through a satellite, there is one going on tonight at 7 p.m. which is actually in half an hour. And there is also a rebuy satellite going on tomorrow at 1 p.m. on Thursday with a buy-in of €37 and 5 tickets guaranteed.
And the main event has a guarantee of 200,000 euros. There's 2 starting days. Tomorrow is the first day, it's day 1A, and on Friday is day 1B. And we see Lochanko coming in for a raise again.
And one reason could be his hand, another reason could be that there is again some extra money in the pot provided by MPN. This time it's a so-called cash drop of €200.
So that's why you might wonder why he's raising 220. Because of the added money, obviously. He's not making a standard raise from 50 or 60 until now the players have been raising to 50 or 60.
And Alehan decides to 3-bet, making it 260 with Jack 9 suited.
Which is pretty interesting because as far as we know, he has been playing for 6 months now. And usually new players don't do things like that.
He proved us wrong.
So Lohunko decides to take a flop with Queen 10, and the flop is very, very interesting now. First of all, it's a 3-bet pot, so Ihan actually is telling a story pre-flop that he has a huge hand. Lohunko is telling a story that he has a good hand as well. And now both of them have something. Lohunko with the lead, with the top pair, and Ihan with Jack 9 with the open ender. And as the pre-flop aggressor, he will probably bet and try to take down the pot and the additional 200 euros. So he does.
Oh, it's a
pretty
big bet, right?
sizable bet of 430.
Lohunko is not going anywhere. Pretty standard so far on the flop. Let's see what Ihan does on the turn when he completes his street.
Getting more and more interesting. So we have 2 pair against a straight. Now Lohunko might think that it's a very good card for him because Ihan is saying that he has ace king, aces, kings, queens, jacks. So as there is a queen in his hand and a queen on the board, it's more likely that if Ihan has a big hand, he's not having queens. So he might think that he is in the lead against a lot of hands and not really behind very often, because I don't think that he expects Ihan to have Jack 9 very often. And Ihan makes a large bet on the turn again with his nuts.
I think it's the biggest pot so far.
It's definitely the biggest pot. So, and Lohunko obviously not going anywhere.
So he needs now a queen or 10.
So it's a deuce, and Ihan has the stone cold nuts and will probably put in a lot of money on the river, and Lohunko will have actually not a very tough decision. He will probably just call whatever Ihan bets, because he is probably thinking that the flush draw is busted. If Ihan had king jack, he has nothing now. If he has aces, he is behind. If he has kings, he is behind. So Lohunko is will not be very unhappy to call, I think.
So Ihan is considering like how much he should bet. I think there is no doubt that he's going to bet. The question is how much will it be?
Ihan has to decide how much to bet, because he has to think about the hands Lohunko has. Like, how much can he call? What are the probable hands that Lohunko is holding? He thinks that Lohunko could have a sad top pair, 2 pair, maybe overpair even with kings or aces, slow played. So when the action is like this, and Lohunko already called a huge bet on the turn and on the flop, he will most probably have a good hand, so he can go for a huge bet. Because especially when everything busted other than Jack 9, all the draws, and he makes it 1,850 and gets quick call, and he will not be happy to see that. And we see Ihan smiling again. We said that he smiles only when he bluffs, but
probably he's just smiling all the time when he wins.
Yeah, because he just won 3,000.
But that's not a huge tell.
No. So we have to watch some more poker to find out about the tells. So Ihan winning a huge hand and a pot of 7,300 euros. And Lahunko probably not very happy. He has been playing a lot of hands. He has been winning a lot of small hands, playing aggressively, playing well, I would say. Now he's down to 1,215 euros.
Ihan taking the lead, now has more than 8,000 euros in front of him and more than 400 big blinds.
And for the guys who came in now to the stream will go on for 6 hours or 3 players left, and after the 6 hours the players will keep the money they have in front of them. So if the stream ended now, Ihan would go home with 8,030 euros and the others with the money they have in front of them.
You could just see a couple of ads on the bottom of the screen promoting the next tournaments coming up in both the Montesino and other poker rooms of the Concord card casinos. And there was actually also an advertising of a really nice promotion called Poker mit Herz. So for all those of you who don't speak German, it's just Poker with Heart, which is actually a charity promotion where the Concord Card Casino Group doubles the donation you are doing in the casinos, and will provide this money to people with special needs. Already more than 150,000 euros were donated, and the Concord Card Casino Group is actually doubling every donation received by the players. If you want to donate, if you want to support this project, you can find all the information on pokermitherz.at. You will find success stories, contact information, and also all the upcoming events. There is also a last longer bet where you can buy in with 10 euros and 50% of the amount will be donated immediately, and the other 50% go into a jackpot. And if you're last man standing in the tournament, you will receive the jackpot. There are actually also a lot of very well-known players supporting Poker mit Herz. So if you want to be part of it, just go on pokermitherz.at and find out more.
Put in a link in the chat box in a few seconds.
We're gonna provide you with a link in the chat box, and feel free to use the chat box also for all your questions and comments.
Now you have the link, and we see hand number 27, which is just a regular hand with no added money, no cash drop. and we saw Toffela raising with ace-10 offsuit and Ihan making a call with ace-3 suited. He will probably play more hands now as he has won a huge hand. He's probably confident, feeling good now, and be willing to play a bunch of hands. We saw him 3-betting with Jack-9. We saw him raising with 6-4 with King-3 suited. So he's here to play as well, I would say.
Will be interesting to see if he is now, because he flopped 2 pair, if he is raising the flop.
I think he announced a raise.
Could be.
Yeah, I think he's putting the chips together for a raise. So the bet was 110 from Toffela with his top pair and 10 kicker, and Ihan with what he thinks and what actually is the best hand, going for a raise to 290, thinking that Toffela will be calling with any ace, and may not believe him, because if you think about it, there shouldn't be a lot of hands for Ihan that he can raise with, except for ace jack and ace 3 and maybe 3s. So there, and he has been playing aggressively, so everyone on the table saw Jack-9, and everyone saw him playing a bunch of hands. So he may be thinking that Toffela thinks that he is aggressive and making a bluff here. So he makes a raise, which I think is good, because he could be raising with a lot of hands, with flush draws, with gut shots, with queen 10, with king queen, king 10, and but Toffela makes a very disciplined fold, believes him, and folds top pair.
We have a question from Nvain1. If it's easy to get on televised games in the European tournament. Well, this kind of tournament or promotion, let's say, is a special one. You would have to play some online cash game first on the microgaming poker network, qualify for a free roll tournament, finish in the top 3, and get invited to this cash game tournament. But there will also be a live stream of the main event starting tomorrow and being or having the final day on Sunday. So if you want to be on the live stream, if you want your friends to watch you play poker, probably the next best way is to play the main event, and then you have a good chance to be on the stream as well, and we're going to analyze your game and comment on what's going on. Marinova, our lady on the table, is raising with ace jack off and takes down the pot. And Wenzeman just asked if players can keep their winnings after the 6 hours, and that's exactly what's happening, unless all the players decide to keep on playing. Then they have another 2 hours of play, and after 8 hours they will keep their winnings. That's a pretty comfortable spot if you cannot really lose something, because all the money on the table is provided by Micro Gaming Poker Network. and there is also some extra money in the pot. This is called the cash drop, and in hand number 29, where we are at the moment, there is also some added money. In this case it's 150 euros, so we're gonna see some action.
So Lahonko was actually involved in a lot of these cash drop hands, but he has lost a huge pot against Ihan when he had two pairs, top two pairs in a 3-bet pot, and has a pretty small stack now. He has around 1,200 euros in front of him, and he decides to defend his big blind with Queen Jack. And
he flops the straight.
That's a huge flop. There was a hand earlier, if you guys were not here at that time, when these two played a hand against each other, and Marinova made a bluff against him, but he didn't see her cards. So now the flop goes check-check, and Honko decides to bet his trade. I think he shouldn't be betting very much here.
But he actually made a over pot size bet to polarize his range.
Yeah, it
was like 180 into a pot of 130.
I think that's the other way you can go. Like, you can make a small bet, try to get your opponent to call with a marginal hand, like with any pair actually. If they decide to call once to see if you're making a chip bluff, or you can go this way and polarize and say, okay, I have the nuts, or I don't have anything. So if you have anything that you hit, you can just not believe me and see what I do on the river. That's what he went for, but Marinova made a fold with her ace high.
And another 200 extra euros for Lahonka.
And this 200 he will definitely keep, so all the cash drops you win, they go directly into your pocket. They're no more on the table. So even if you lose all your chips and have to leave the table, you keep the extra added money that you win.
Miran open raises from the cutoff with 4 deuce offsuit. Hasn't been that active in the last couple of hands, so maybe he's trying to use his image.
I don't think it's a very good idea, given the other players have been active as well, a little bit at least. And we go to the flop 3 ways. And we see Murin bet 100 with his bottom pair, and Sadkovitz obviously not folding with trips. And the 3 of hearts is somewhat interesting as it completes a flush draw, and Murin has to decide what to do. He will not fold a lot of better hands. He might think that 5s and 6 and some middle pairs could fold to a turn bet, so he does bet. And he might also think that if there is a flush on the river, another heart and giving him a flush, he has the best hand, so he's semi bluffing then, but he gets called. and now he is in big trouble if he decides to bluff again. I don't think that he should be bluffing a lot here because his opponent called twice. He could, what could he have? He could, on the flop, he could have a lot. He could have threes, fours,